Hello, Dungeon Delvers and fellow DMs. Welcome to the DM's Den, where we're going to talk about tips, tricks, and tales for adventurers. Today's topic is all about how to engage new players in your role-playing game. I'm going to use Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition for this example. The first thing that works so well for young and old players alike is immersion. And you can stay immersed in a lot of different ways, and I highly recommend that we do all of them. So let's start simple. First, choices. Make sure that your players get to make lots of choices when they create their character. Whether it's rolling dice or point buy, make sure that they are invested in making their stats. Make sure that they make the choice on the race, they make the choice on the class, they make the choice on the starting powers. If they're stuck, they're not sure what to do, help them, but don't make the decisions for them. Be a part of the conversation. Use them as a sounding board. If they get really flustered, you can still make the decision, but make them a part of that decision. Meet them halfway. Maybe even 60-40, but just help them out. You're the DM. Help them. Props. Now, I don't recommend having a huge broadsword if you're a fighter, but knowing that you have some hand axes might help. For example, my wizard that I play uses this. This is a tiny, cheapo little gun. And it's easy because it's easy to interact with. It's easy to hold. I can easily put it in my pocket. It's small. It doesn't take up a lot of space in the limited space that we have when we play. But it's very easy to interact with. And when I pick up my gun, I change my voice. And when I change my voice, I'm in character. And that distinction is very powerful. It's also really helpful for the DMs. I might say something as an aside in this voice. Man, we should really just kill this guy. But I said it. My character, however, this person's an idiot. My character says that, which is different. And because I changed my voice, the DM knows, okay, he said that. When I interact with a prop and I wield it around and I do something with it, I'm doing that in character, and that's another indicator for the DM. What is he doing? He's drawing his gun and he's pointing it at the ambassador. And that's an action that I can just take. And then I've immersed myself in the character. Beyond just using props, make sure that you change who you are when you're in character. And try to get in character as much as possible. Role-playing can be very difficult for some people that have never done it before, never even thought about it before. And with young players, it's especially difficult because how are we in middle school? Self-centered. We're all about us. That's not an insult. That's how we are developmentally. We're not thinking too much about the world around us. We're thinking about us. We're trying to manage ourselves. So thinking about a character and changing into someone who isn't us is a little weird. But if you can start to pull it off young, this is going to be awesome. So even if you're not comfortable in changing your voice, change your posture. Maybe your character walks around like this. Maybe you are like this, but your character sits up straight because they're a noble person. Maybe you kind of change your swagger. Maybe you're a fighter and you lean back a bit when you get in character. You talk a little bit differently. You don't have to change the actual voice that you use, but maybe you have a little tick. Something that is a distinction between you and the character, the player and the character. It also adds another layer to your background, which adds to the immersion. Stay invested. A great way to stay invested is to keep track of what you're doing. Maybe your character has a journal. My wizard does. But that's because he's constantly writing things down. He might have a spell book. He might have notes that he takes. He's learning runes. So every time he learns a rune, he draws it in that book. It's in the physical book. Good. And that's just so that as a player, if I happen to forget what the runes are, there it is. If you happen to forget where you're going, the name of the overlord you're trying to stop, or the name of the tavern you're trying to go to, you have written it down and you can refer to it later. Also, if you're forced to write something down and keep track of the information that you're being given by the DM, you're going to be a lot more invested in what happens in the world. Turn off your electronic devices. They're not the centerpiece. The story is. We all came together to join in on this group game. We need to be respectful of that fact and stay invested in the group game. Ask questions in character. Figure things out as a team. Work together. Don't sit there and play Candy Crush and wait for your turn to hit something with your axe. It's rude. Stop it. Get organized. Now, this isn't as much of a big deal when it comes to fighter classes, but when you start getting up there, Bard, Druid, Wizard, Sorcerer, Warlock, all the casters, anybody that has special actions they can take that are more than just, I hit it with my axe. In fact, everybody has some special actions at some point. I highly recommend doing this. These are blank cards. They're playing cards. You can get about 500 of them for $5 or so, maybe less, on Amazon. Big blank cards in a big box. What I do with this, playing a wizard for the first time, I created a deck, which is my spell book. And then I draw out the cards I want for the day. These are the spells I have prepared. They're in my hand. It's a way to let me know you have these available. You can do these actions. And you can do these actions multiple times. You can do these actions, my cantrips, as much as you want. Great. But it helps me organize what am I able to do. Another great way to stay organized is to keep track of your dice. Now, some people have dice bags, that makes sense, but what happens when you take the dice out of the bag and you've got a lot of people at a table? Maybe you don't have a table. Like my group, we don't have tables. We have books. Now, these books are not actually books. They are hollow. We put our dice, and I put my cards, where all my spells in it, and if we have miniatures, the miniatures go in there too. And then when it's time to roll, we roll the die in the box. The die doesn't fly off the table, it doesn't get lost under the couch, it stays in the box. Roll it in the box. And then we figure it out from there. But maybe the book isn't the right aesthetic for you. There are other options. In fact, you could use a treasure chest. How appropriate. You open up your treasure chest. All your dice are inside, your character's inside. It's very official, very cool. You roll your dice, you close it up. Or maybe you throw your dice inside, you take everything out, throw your dice inside, shake it up, and then figure it out. You can do this in a lot of different ways. You don't necessarily have to have a treasure chest, you could just have a little jewelry box. Oh, but it's a small thing. If you get these, I got these very cheap, if you get them without any paint on them, you can even customize them. You could put your character on them. You could put special symbols on them. Maybe they have runes on them. All these cool things that add to the immersion, they add to the experience. And, bonus, you get more organized. So let's recap. The best thing you can do is get immersed. So how do we do that? We incorporate lots of choices for the players, including buying equipment. That was one of the most exciting things for younger players. I roll these dice, I times it by 10, and then I go to town and I go shopping. Wow, full plate's expensive. These cool things, and then they can aspire to get more money later to buy that thing that they couldn't buy before because they couldn't get it with their starting gold. That's important. Then they know what to go for later. They have expectations, they have motivations. They have a shopping list. They have a wish list. Great. Incorporate choices. You can use props if you like. It's a way to get in character, but try to stay in character as much as possible. Maybe you change your body type, you change the way you sit, you change your voice structure, all these cool things, but you have to change yourself a little bit as a distinction to the DM and as a distinction to yourself when you're in character and when you're not. Stay invested by keeping track of what's going on. Write things down. The names of NPCs, the names of enemies, the town, where you are. Maybe some players want to start drawing a map of where you are. Maybe your DM provides you with a map. But wouldn't it be cool if you could draw your own so you can figure out where things are in relation to each other? That's great. Turn off your electronic devices. That's not the point of this game. This is not a video game. This is a group game. It's about social interaction. It's about working together as a team, as fellow human beings. You think why people love it so much when they actually get into playing it? Because it's social interaction. So don't tarnish that. Turn off your electrical devices and get in the zone with everybody else. Get the organized. Know what you're going to do next time. Know what you're going to do on your turn. Start to really understand what's what. Do you have to know the player's handbook cover to cover? No. But you might want to keep track of what you can do on your turn. What are your special abilities? What do they do? I don't know, man. If you're a caster, what spells do you have? Do you have access to all of them? Keep track of those things and find a means to keep track of them. Whether you go the deck route, whether you just print off all your spells and you put little symbols next to things that you understand and don't understand and you have a little legend, whatever you need to do. But get yourself organized so you know what's going on. And finally, remember, this is a group game. The DM has to do a lot of planning. Help the DM out by being civil to one another. Yes, you might have players that are maybe far removed from the other interests of the party. You may have a party that is just all about loot, killing people, let's go on to the next enemy, and you've got one who's trying to be lawful good, and they're trying to be a good person. You have a moral conflict. This is a group game. Start to try to work together. You're going to run into problems, you're going to run into conflict, sure. But start to try to work together. Remember that this is a world that was created. This is a fantasy world, but there are characters and interactions. It's a group game. Work as a group, not as individuals in a video game landscape. You have to talk to each other. You have to communicate with one another. You have to communicate with the NPCs and the DM. Start doing it. So anyway, thanks for tuning in to the first episode of the DM's Den. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button, maybe subscribe button. All these things help the channel out. Please share this video if you found it helpful. We need as much exposure as possible. Another great thing that you can do is go over to the Patreon page and try to support the channel that way. The more support that we get, the more that we can do and expand. There's a lot of possibilities here, and I urge you to go check it out. Next time, I'll be sharing some tips and tricks on how to manage large groups of players. Remember, I mentioned that the group I'm leading right now of little kids is 11 kids. And I've done a few things that really help streamline the process, and we're going to utilize a few more. I'm really excited, and I want to share those with you so that you can feel confident running larger games. So tune in next time for more tips, tricks, and tales for fellow adventurers. Game on. Bye now.